Hello guys, this is Abdurrahman Gilal, and in today's lecture we will be learning something about polymorphism, which is a basic concept of object-oriented programming language. In our previous lecture, we learned something about inheritance. So we realized that Java, because helps us, or object-oriented programming in specific helps us to code reusability. That means we can reuse the code that has already developed. And it is for sure these days the software are not developed by standalone developers or developed by one in one go, so or software does not get changed, so it's not happening. Software gets changed every day, and the technology change which enforces us to change the coding or change the software. We also realize that there is a need that once we are working in a team and or we are working on different modularity of the code where one person is doing some other work and you are working on something else. In that type of situation, sometimes you are not well known to the code that they are developing. So we are just aware of the, how to say their definitions of their classes and methods. So it is always good to know that if you are working on your code, you should be, letting the code be used or be working the way you like to work. For instance, what I mean that let's say you're working on requirement one and then you develop the requirement, and then once you developed, you try to test the requirement, and then after testing, you went for implementation. So when you implementation is done, so basically, this set of requirement is now operational. So there can be a time then you got another requirement that is called requirement two. So how you actually going to extend the work? So if you go back and start developing from the scratch, then you will have to test it again and then you'll have to implement again. That's not a good practice. So what we understood the other day that the good thing is that if you have anything that you are developing on any part of the code or any part of the modularity, you develop the code, sorry, develop the code, and then you tested the code, and then you are sure that the testing is done, so you implement the code, right? So this looks very practical. So when it's done, so you now can use a concept called requirement two, the concept called inheritance. So in inheritance, what you do is that you put your code here, and then you still can extend this, what I mean, the extension that you go and use the use the publicly available content from this class in here in R2 or in your different code. So we understood that this extension is done using Java classes. For instance, we realized that if we have a class, so class A, for instance, anything in the class A, and we wanted to go and try to see like class B, which is now actually extending or extends B. So anything that is publicly available if from this class is part of class B. This appears to be a concept called inheritance that we have already discussed, that we basically extend the code by just simply putting the, how to say, keyword call extension. So everything that is public comes here. But that is also possible that there was some code here. For example, there was method, like say ABC, and you wanted to change the behavior of this ABC. For example, there's this is a calculator program, or this is calculator class, and then the class you have addition here, and then you realize the addition was an integer, and then you were not just basically looking for integer. You may pass it to, like, how to say, some float or double values. So how are you gonna do that? Because you don't have access to modify this code. You only have access to use this code in here. So in order to modify the code, there we are going to now learn the concept called polymorphism. I have already shortly discussed in my previous presentation about polymorphism. Now I'm going to explain further detail. So there are two things that we have to recap from our previous topic. That is, one is overloading, and the other one is overriding. So, excuse me. So overloading and overriding, they are also part of this topic, that is polymorphism. How do they actually happen? So let me let me draw something for you. Let's say if I have a class A, and then I have, this is a constructor, which is a null constructor, and then there I got another constructor for the same, and that is receiving basically uh, one argument through parameters. So when we see that the one A class has two methods with the same name but different definitions, so this is considered to be a concept of overloading, which means that we are uh, we are separating still the methods by their definitions. So here, number one, they are in the same class, and number two, they are having different, definitions. It's possible that there is a different. Here is we got return type integer, and here we don't have any integer or return type, so that's possible. But this is the thing that when you are working in the same class, right? So there's a possibility that we are going to work in a different classes, such as I mentioned, class A has a method called ABC, and it has one argument that is called integer x, for instance, and then that's it. And then we got class B, and then class B extends basically class A, and then class B also has a method which is called ABC, and it has also the same type of argument. So here comes a condition that basically both of them are having the same definition, same definition. So once this situation comes, this is going to create a concept called overriding. So overriding says that you have the same definition, but definitely it's gonna be from the different classes, because if you keep in the same class, you will face an error. So so that's how it looks like in quick way. When you talk about overriding, you are still talking about polymorphism. So let's jump back and understand further about polymorphism. So if I have wanted to explain this topic in detail, so let's say this is my polymorphism. So I will be saying that I will have two types of polymorphism. One is compile time, or some people call it another name. Let me tell you. That name they call early binding. So early binding says that you are working, or you are changing you are changing or selecting a method. If you have two same name methods but different parameters, so you change it compile time. And once the compiler selected something, that is the only thing that has to run during, during execution time. But there is another, how to say, type that we call runtime, definitely. Sorry about that. Yeah, runtime. So runtime is also known as late binding. Sorry about this. So late binding. So late binding or early binding for compile time, late binding, and some people also call dynamic binding. Why they call it dynamic binding? Because they select the method of the same name during runtime, or that it is the way that when we receive input at console, or when we let user to interact during console, so this makes it dynamic, which is a very good thing. So it does not select it the first time, but it is actually going to. So compile and runtime. So when I say early binding, so it is considered to be overloading. I will not mind to call it overloading, and I will not mind to call it overriding. So it's the same thing for me. So if somebody say this is overriding a runtime, and I'm okay with this. So let me just quickly go and explain the further definition about that. So in case you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me here. So what Walter Savage says about polymorphism, let's say, or once again, it's a true part that is an important concept of object-oriented, programming. So surely yes. Polymorphism is the ability to associate many meanings to one method name. So the same thing we discussed, that if we have that ABC, in one class and A, B is in another class. So it remains the same name, but different types of abilities to do. So So basically, it's the same thing. For instance, if you ask me, who am I with you guys? I am, let's say, right now a demonstrator, but most of the time I am a student or learner, and sometimes I'm friend to my friends, and I'm brother to my siblings, and I'm son to my father or my parents. So, so this makes me as a one, let's say, method, but different type of behavior at different situation. This is what we call polymorphism, right? So let's further explain. You will understand better when we start coding about that. So let's say it's a late binding. This is what we just discussed, and this is also called dynamic binding. So it's a similar to inheritance. This is what I just told you. Inheritance also does the same thing as I told you that you have class A and you class B. Let me draw it a slight difference here. So let's say this is me, it's class A once again, and we got some fields here, integer x or integer y. Let's say we have two fields, and then we've got two methods here or one method that is called ABC. For instance, I'm not going to discuss the detail of that. And then I'm coming here and then I'm saying class B, which extends actually the properties of A or methods of A. So here, by default, this extension is actually going to bind everything, going to bind everything that is public here with this class. So you can use them if you want to use just simply by calling them or making, by accessing, if somebody's, let's say you have your own things, such as you have integer z here, and then you had a method called etc, and then if you start, if a main class is making the object in the main method. Sorry about my short forms of writing. So if class B, um, such as this B equals to new, and here is the B of the constructor of B. So now if I want to say B dot, and then I'm calling ABC, which is not part of B, but I still can use it here. So I still can use it here because it is now part of, as I told you, part of class B by after extending. So it looks the same. It looks the same. So, but there's a thing that when we have two different, two same name methods, then only we will consider about polymorphism. So right at the moment, both looks a bit similar in most of the programming languages. So that's why inheritance allow a base class to be defined and other class derive from it, as I did just now. And then code for the base class can then be used for its own objects, which means that if I wanted to make the object of class A, as well as if I wanted to make the class of derived class, which means the B. So it's the same. If I make the object of B class, which is still going to extend, or which is still going to use the code of A class if all the elements are publicly available. But in polymorphism, that allows changes to be made to the method definition, such as ABC, and in the drive class, and and then you change in the drive class, which means you change in the B class, and the changes are going to apply in the base class. So this is something very good about that. So which means that the requirements are going to actually ask you that you have developed a method in A class, which is taking argument as an integer. But now you wanted to change, so you don't have to go back into the A class and change it. Maybe you can extend into the B class and you still can put the different parameters, and you change it the way you like to change. So you change does not mean you change the code. You make the code in class B, for instance, I'm saying all the things, but those changes will be applied as a behavior to class A. So whenever the class A will be behaving, it'll still be behaving the way you like to behave from the class B. So it's kind of a control. So that's what we're going to learn today about how to say how we can actually do that. So once again, I must still tell you that polymorphism will help us to do these changes of behavior in the base class. It's a possibility. So overloading is a concept of inheritance. Oh, sorry, it's concept of part of concept or a known concept of polymorphism, but where you are same in the same class. But when you are having different classes, basically you're working on overriding, and that's called dynamic polymorphism, uh, which we call early binding, as is mentioned here. So if the method, the definition is associated with this, invocation, when the code is compiled, that is called early binding. Before you execute the code, it's just still the compilation time. But if it is during runtime, which you never know, it's called dynamic. So you may read about this definition. So there should be one specific rule, or these are few understandings, that if you are going to work with certain access modifier or certain keywords, such as you are working a private class or private methods, you cannot apply dynamic, how to say, dynamic binding or overriding, because private means you cannot call it from other class. That's the point. So you cannot even change it. This is very much clear. So make sure that your methods are not private if you are going to work with dynamic binding or late binding. And if the class is, let's say, class A is final, definitely the same thing in inheritance. You cannot extend it any further. So, and static methods usually do not require you to have any object. So if you don't have any object, then how you can actually change the behavior of the method there in parent class. So these are certain things that you have to be knowing about the rules, and this makes us very clear understanding that late binding is easy, but when we restrict our classes, then we cannot do that. I hope it makes some sense, theoretical sense. Let me jump back and open the compiler, and I'll get back to you. So give me a second. Yeah, guys. So I have already text that type the code so that to save the time. So let's take the same example as we were saying that this is our animal class. So we know that all animals will make some sound. So I have one method called animal sound. So animal sound is a method of animal class. So when there's a dog, the dog makes a specific type of sound, such as dog does bow bow. So I have used the annotation. You also can use annotation. This is very easy. Annotation will actually let you guide you that you are doing some sort of thing. So as soon as you put a eight operator or either eight operator, you're gonna get this list of annotations there in IntelliJ. So you just pick any one. So it's just a kind of declaration that this is the part that you're actually overriding. So you're gonna say like you have done bow. It looks the same, which is same name, both same name, same declaration, same everything is same. That, but only a thing that the behavior is different. So this behavior is animal sound, and this behavior is bow. So we have a cat is on an animal, and cat does meow, and we also have done the same name of the class. So this looks like I have just created three animals, sorry, two animals, and both of them are extending the class that is basically animal class. So how it looks like, it is like this, that we have this as animal class. So animal class, and animal has a method called animal sound. Animal sound. This is the method. Sorry about the writing. And then you got this another class called cat class, and this class called dog class. So dog and cat both are having their own animal sound class. So same thing here. Sorry, not class method. So this animal sound method. So you know that dog makes its own sound and cat makes its own sound. So now this is going to actually change here. So we know that here we have output we expected, that is animal sound. If you see this one, right? This should be the output. But when we call this class, it will influence this. It will change it to meow meow or whatever sound you want to give. So basically, this is what we call overriding, and overriding, which means we are talking about polymorphism, right? So let's say how it works. Uh, Let me remove the drawings. So, yep. So there you go. So we have all these two animals, and there could be more than two animals. You can bring as many as animals you like. So I'm just trying to give you a fundamental understanding. This I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So this is animal sound as a class. It's non-animal sound like this is animal sound as a class because I already made the file. That's why I wanted to make sure this is clearly the name. So animal sound is my class. I can keep it main. In my library, I have got another main class, so it's not. That's why I didn't create the main. And then this is the main method. So the twist is happening here. So I'm making the object of, let's say, animal class, right? So animal class, which means this is my base class, and then I say my animal, I use new operator, and I use animal as a constructor. So animal constructor comes from here, which is a by default constructor, which is we don't have anything to pass, so that we are making it null. And then this is animal, and this is called my dog, and then new, and then there you go. How come I have got the class name, sorry, my instance I was trying to make of animal, but constructor I am calling from dog. So it says that I am now going to call for overriding. So anything that is there in the animal with the same declaration now is going to be, coming from, coming from animal, or sorry, coming from dog class, and will be replacing the behavior of animal class. I hope it makes sense. So once again, I say I am trying to make instance of animal class, but I'm calling the constructor of dog. So basically, dog is having this. So any method which is the same name now will be actually taking from the dog class. So same thing for animal kit. So now let's call the animal sound from this from all these three. And all these three classes are actually, or objects are made from the base animal, and only the constructor are different. You're gonna see a constructor is different, and then we could make it. So let's say if you have something else in here, let me just make another class, another, sorry, public etc, and sorry about this. I am making how to say, I'm making another method to just make a difference, clear difference for all of us, that we are not actually going to confuse to see like this is etc method from animal class, right? So now I have etc here, and I make in dog XYZ method. So I make it not public, it's okay, public, and I return nothing, sorry. So I return nothing, it's just like public void. So I am here going to make public and sorry, void XYZ, and I put here the same thing, same, but I am calling it from where. So you're gonna see, like, if this is the object of doc class, then object of doc class can let us have access of this from dog class, right? This is XYZ. So now I'm gonna see, like, okay, let's run it first. First, just directly print, and then we're gonna see. Okay, so let's run it first and see if we got anything coming out from this. Okay, so I have called this three times, my animal dot animal sound. The first sound is animal, which is true, which I expected. Second should be dog sound, which is bow bow, and then third should be meow meow. That's all good. So it makes sense. Now, because we have made the object uh, uh, make the object of animal class, so I anticipate. So let's say my animal dot, so it only shows me etc. It does not show me xyz. It's true that in animal class we have etc, but xyz is in the dog class, right? So let me call this my dog. Let's say if it's going to give us my dog dot. So you're gonna see still we don't get xyz here. Why? Because we are making the object of animal class. We did not make object of dog class. And that is the beauty of polymorphism, that you change the behavior of base class from its child class. You don't have any xyz here because the base class is still animal, and animal does not have any, let me show you, any XYZ method. So you're going to see only two methods, animal sound and etc. And that's it. This class is done. So the XYZ is the method from dog class. And here we have not made any dog object. So dog class object is not there. That's why we don't see any XYZ from here. I hope it makes sense. So once again, I quickly tell you that polymorphism is to have a same name methods of different behavior, which can change the behavior of the parent class from the child class. And usually what we do is that we do it using overriding. And overriding is possible, or it is a way that is called late binding or dynamic binding in Java programming language. So I hope it is clear. If you got any question, please do not hesitate to ask me. Thank you so much.